Hello everybody, Vibes of a Wildlife here. Welcome to another video where we dive into the heart, humor, and unexpected life lessons from the animal kingdom. What if I told you one of nature's quietest creatures could teach you everything you need to know about emotional independence? I know, groundhogs. The furry little guy who pops up once a year to predict the weather, then dips? Doesn't exactly scream life guru, but don't let that soft face and sleepy reputation fool you. The groundhog lives a life most of us wouldn't dare to try. Deeply solo, purposefully quiet, and fully self-sufficient. This isn't just a story about tunnels and hibernation. It's about something deeper. See, groundhogs don't just survive solitude, they own it. And in a world that tells us we need to constantly connect, post, reply, be seen, these little creatures are living proof that stillness can be strength. And alone doesn't have to mean lonely. Because solitude, that's not a punishment, it's a power. So in this video, we're diving into the underground world of the groundhog, literally and metaphorically. From burrow blueprints to bold boundaries, we're talking strategy, self-respect, and why making peace with your own presence might just be the most radical thing you do this year. Before we dig in, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Because when it comes to groundhog wisdom, trust me, this ain't just shadow talk. Let's go deep, not just into the dirt, into the truth. Let's start underground, because that's where the groundhog story really begins. These little creatures, they're not social butterflies. They're not looking for a crew to roll with. Groundhogs are solitary by design. Outside of mating season, it's a one-animal show. They don't need a village to function. They are the village. And that kind of independence, that's not accidental. It's baked into who they are. Now here's where it gets wild. For an animal that's only a couple feet long, groundhogs build burrows that stretch up to 60 feet. 60. That's not just a hole in the ground, that's a whole blueprint. We're talking separate rooms for sleeping, eating, even going to the bathroom. There are food storage chambers, nursery spaces, side tunnels for quick escapes. Some even have a secondary entrance, just in case. That's a lot of effort for one animal. But that's the point. They make space for themselves like they deserve it. And honestly, that's what hits me most. This isn't just digging to disappear, it's designing for peace, for comfort, for survival. Groundhogs don't run from the world. They retreat with intention. Every tunnel carved, every chamber placed. It's all part of a system that says, I know what I need, and I'm not waiting for someone else to build it for me. That's more than instinct, that's wisdom. But solitude isn't just about where they live. It's about how they move. Because once they step above ground, the mindset doesn't change. It deepens. Let's take a closer look at what happens when groundhogs leave their safe zone and still manage to stay grounded. Step outside that burrow and the groundhog doesn't suddenly switch into social mode. Nope. They stay in that same energy, calm, collected, and completely in control. The wild is full of things that could eat them for lunch. Hawks, foxes, coyotes. But you won't catch a groundhog freaking out. They don't panic, they pause. You'll see one just sitting there, still as a statue, like it's meditating on the meaning of life. But really, it's listening, watching, reading the entire vibe of the space before making a move. That stillness, it's not fear-based, it's strategic. In a world that's constantly pushing us to respond fast, post fast, move fast, the groundhog is out here reminding us that patience can save your life. Their solitude gives them the clarity to stay tuned in, not tuned out. They're not bouncing energy off a group. No second opinions, no crowd reactions. Just instinct, sharpened through silence. And this is where it gets personal. Because most animals rely on the group. Flocks, packs, colonies, safety in numbers, right? But groundhogs, they bet on themselves. Every decision they make comes from a place of self-trust. That's not loud, and it's definitely not performative. It's subtle. It's steady. It's the kind of confidence that says, I don't need to be seen to know I'm secure. And maybe that's a lesson for the rest of us. That real confidence doesn't always show up with noise. Sometimes it's the quietest creature in the field who's got the clearest view. And for groundhogs, that clarity isn't just about survival, it's about intention. Because the way they move through the world, it's not reactive, it's deliberate. And that leads us to the next layer of this. Because groundhogs don't just manage solitude, they protect it. They choose their energy, their time, and when, or if, to engage. Let's get into that. Here's the part I find both hilarious and kinda genius. Groundhogs are the original kings and queens of thanks, but I'll pass. They're not out here trying to be seen. They'll pop their head up, take one long look around like, No, not today, and slide right back underground. No fear of missing out, just clarity. If the moment doesn't serve their peace, their safety, or their priorities, they bounce. Instantly. That's not avoidance. That's knowing your worth. Now don't get it twisted. They're not antisocial. They're selective. Groundhogs aren't hermits. When it's time to mate or raise young, they show up. They're present, involved, intentional. But once that season's done, back to that solo life. Not because they're cold, because they're clear. They know when their presence adds value, and when it's time to step back and recharge. That's not selfish, that's sustainable. The world we live in tries to convince us we have to be on all the time, visible, accessible, reacting to everything. But groundhogs, they remind us that silence isn't weakness. It's not disconnection, it's discernment. It's knowing that peace is a priority, and you don't owe the world constant access just because it's loud. And that right there, that's what flips the whole narrative. Solitude doesn't mean you've vanished. It doesn't mean you're missing out. It means you're choosing to show up for yourself first. And groundhogs, they embody that presence in every breath they take underground. But here's the real twist, that solitude goes even deeper, literally. Let's talk about what happens when they fully unplug, not for a day or a weekend, but for an entire season. Now let's talk about the deepest kind of solitude, the kind that goes beyond just spending time alone and slips into something almost spiritual. When winter hits, groundhogs don't scramble. They don't migrate, they don't panic. They hibernate, alone, for 5 to 6 months. And I'm not talking about a cozy nap, I'm talking full shutdown mode. Their body temperature drops to just a few degrees above freezing. Heart rate slows down to about 5 beats per minute. That's borderline suspended animation. If it were a human, we'd call 911. But for a groundhog, that's business as usual. And what's ironic, right in the middle of that deep, quiet stillness, we throw Groundhog Day. February 2nd. Big crowd, flashing cameras, waiting on a sleepy animal to pop up and predict the weather. Meanwhile, the real groundhog is probably curled up deep underground, completely unaware, absolutely unbothered, and doing the one thing most of us forget to do, rest without guilt. And here's where it gets beautiful. That's not just survival, that's trust. Trust in the stillness, trust in the process, a full surrender to solitude. No noise, no movement, just a silent reset in the belly of the earth. It's one of the purest examples of nature saying, you don't always need to be active to be powerful. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let everything slow down, on purpose. Because that hibernation, it's more than physical. It's a restart, a detox. In that deep, uninterrupted quiet, the groundhog isn't hiding. It's healing, recharging, clearing the slate. Solitude becomes sacred, not something to escape, but something to lean into. And when they reemerge, they're not dragging their feet, looking dazed or drained. No, they come back rested, ready, renewed. Like solitude didn't just protect them, it rebuilt them. And maybe that's a reminder for us too. Stepping back doesn't mean you're falling behind. Sometimes it's exactly what you need to come back stronger. Let's explore what that comeback looks like, not just for the groundhog, but for anybody learning to thrive on their own terms. Here's the thing most folks don't talk about. Being alone and being lonely, two completely different experiences. One drains you, the other can actually fill you up. Groundhogs don't isolate out of fear. They're not sitting in their burrows waiting for the world to make the first move. They're centered, they're grounded, they're clear. That kind of solitude isn't about emptiness, it's about alignment. And honestly, there's something powerful about knowing how to be with yourself without needing someone else to validate the moment. And maybe that's where we can take a cue. Because carving out space for yourself doesn't mean slamming the door on everybody else. It means opening one for you, making room for your thoughts, your healing, your joy. Like a groundhog crafting every tunnel with purpose, we get to decide what kind of inner world we build. Not to hide, but to hear ourselves without the noise. To feel the difference between what's truly ours and what we've been carrying just because the world handed it to us. Solitude isn't an absence, it's presence, amplified. It's not about silence for the sake of silence, it's about depth. About choosing to listen to your own rhythm before tuning into the chaos outside. And when you really sit in that space, not rush to fill it, not run from it, you start to hear truths that don't need to shout. You see yourself a little clearer. And maybe for the first time, you stop chasing connection just to prove you belong, because you already do. Sometimes the quietest lives have the loudest truths. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop waiting for the world to tell you who you are. and you start showing the world who you've always been. That's your groundhog moment right there. Not just surviving in the background, thriving in the stillness, fully, freely, and on your own terms. So if there's one thing to take with you, it's this. Groundhogs don't isolate, they insulate. Not to shut the world out, but to protect what matters inside. Their space, their peace, their rhythm. And that's the heart of it. Solitude can be sacred. Not lonely, not empty, just real, just yours. So here's a question to sit with. What would your life look like if you built a little more space for stillness? Not to disappear, but to show up even more grounded when you return. If that hit home, if it made you think, or maybe even breathe a little deeper, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. There's more where this came from. More lessons from the wild side of life, told with heart and a little bite. With that said, thanks for watching. And until next time, remember the groundhog's wisdom. When life gets loud, go underground and come back up on your own terms.